Hey everyone! Welcome to Red Fox Sewing and Crafting, and welcome to my craft room. I'm Joanna. Today we will start making this Barn Doors album. Cover looks a little complicated, but it's really easy to do. Let me show you how to do it. So, you will need some chipboard. Gonna need one 6 1/4 by 6 1/4, two 3 1/8 by 6 1/4, two 2 by 6 1/4, and one 3 by 3. This album is going to make a 6 1/4 by 6 1/4 inch album, and it's 2 inches wide. It'll give you plenty of room for pictures. For your cardstock, you will need one piece that is 8 1/4 by 8 1/4. Here. 4 pieces that are 5 by 8 1/4, and one that is 5 by 5. So we will start with the 3 by 3 inch piece of chipboard and the 5 by 5 cardstock. I already went ahead and put score tape on the backs of all my chipboard pieces to make it easier to do this. And I'm just going to get my scoreboard out. And this paper has texture on the right side, so I'm going to make sure to put the smooth side on the chipboard side. And I have these rulers. They are really good spacing rulers, and I will link them down below. They are from Country Craft Creations. They are very helpful with lining up your chipboard on your cardstock when you are making your albums, putting them together. So I'm just going to put my 3 by 3 inch piece of chipboard in the center of my 5 by 5 inch piece of cardstock. Just like so. And I like to put all my chipboard pieces on my cardstock before I move on to the next step, just to make the process a little bit easier on myself. Kind of like an assembly line almost. So now I have my 8 1/4 by 8 1/4, and I'm going to grab my 6 1/4 by 6 1/4 chipboard. Just going to remove the backing of my score tape here. And stick my fingers to the score tape. And I'm just going to line up the edge of my chipboard to my ruler, and it's perfectly centered. And then same thing with my 3 1/8 by 6 1/4 inch pieces. Going to take 2 of the 5 by 8 and 8 1/4 inch pieces and stick them onto the chipboard like so. And now I'm going to switch my rulers. This yellow one is 1 inch by 1 inch, and this one is 1.5 by 1 inch. So I'm going to place this spacer with the 1.5 inch on the side and the 1 inch at the top. Grab another one of my 5 by 8 1/4, and I'm going to grab my first 2 inch piece of chipboard, and the 2 inch pieces of chipboard are going to be the spine, and you need a little bit more spacing on the sides to connect to the front and back pieces. So I'm just putting it in like that, and then we have our 2 1.5 inch sides, which will be the wings that attach to the front and back pieces, and then these will just, the 2 1 inch pieces will just fold over onto the chipboard. And we're going to do that to our last piece of cardstock and the last piece of chipboard. Just like that. And now, to start out with, I like to do the same thing with all of my chipboard pieces. So I will show you the beginning process, and then I will fast forward and show you how to wrap the spines and the other pieces separately. So what I like to do is take my burnishing tool here and kind of just rub it on the front of the cardstock to make sure that I get a nice stick on my chipboard. And then I'm just going to fold the cardstock around the chipboard pieces on all 4 sides, like so. And then with the cardstock up again, I'm going to take my bone folder here, and with this one there's a rounded side and a square side. I like to do this on the rounded side. I'm going to put my burnishing tool, my bone folder, up against where that fold line is, right up against the chipboard, and go across the edge of the chipboard a couple times to get a nice edge, so that when the cardstock is folded around the chipboard, you get a more crisp edge on the cardstock instead of it being a little bumpy. So I'm going to do this to all my cardstock pieces, all my chipboards, and then I will be back to show you how to wrap them. All my pieces are burnished and ready to go, so now I'm going to show you how to wrap them. With the ones that have the 1 inch on all 4 sides, I'm going to take a pair of scissors, and I like mitering about halfway down and then cutting straight across the score line to the chipboard to cut out the side squares, and it'll look like this. And you're going to want to do that to all 4 sides. And there are multiple ways of making albums. You can go on YouTube and find different ways of doing this. This is just how I like to do it. Once you have your corners cut out, it's going to look like this. And then you're going to grab score tape if you like using score tape, or you can just use your wet adhesive, doesn't matter. And I'm just going to take my score tape and go around on all my edges here. And then I'm going to quickly burnish my score tape down. With square pieces, it doesn't really matter which two sides you start with, but when I have a rectangular piece, like with the 3/8 by 6 1/4 inch pieces, I like to start with the two side pieces, so that would be these two, and then just wrap them around and then do the top and bottom, because then when you attach the spines to the front and back covers, the tabs will hold on to the front or the top and bottom pieces, and then the top and bottom tabs will hold the side tabs down. It's just more reinforcement to make sure that your album isn't gonna totally fall apart. So I'm just going to take my score tape backing off really quick, and then starting at one side, I'm going to add a little bit of glue just to the edge of my chipboard, just right here. And then I'm going to take this with this angled side. I'm going to lay it flat on my mat, getting it right underneath the paper, and just burnish it a couple times, and then fold it over with my fingers, just like that, and then go over it with my bone folder and burnish it really good. So again, glue, bring my smoothing tool underneath to burnish, flatten it with my fingers, and then burnish to make sure I got a really good stick. And now I'm going to do the opposite two sides. And there is a really nicely wrapped piece of chipboard. So we're going to set this to the side for now, and I'm going to show you really quick how to do a rectangular piece. So we're just going to start the same way, cutting out the corners and putting on score tape. So I have made some pieces that are more long than they are tall, so I would start with the shorter sides in that case, but this one, the front pieces are longer than they are wide, so I'm going to start with these pieces first. And so I'm going to take my square tape backing off, and then I'm going to add glue to one of the long sides first. Burnish that really good with my burnishing tool. Stick that down on my chipboard. Smooth it out, and then switch to my other long side. And do the same thing. And now I'm going to go to my top and bottom pieces here. And I don't know if you can tell, but my two sides here are now locked in with the top and bottom pieces. Now when we put our album together, these side flaps on our spine will eventually go over the top of our front pieces and our back piece like this. So then these pieces will lock the top and bottom pieces, and so you won't get peeling or anything. To do the spine pieces, we are just going to chop off a little tiny bit. You don't have to cut very much off. Just kind of angle a little bit off. And you'll want a pretty good amount, about, I'd say, like 1/2 inch from the corners, like this. And then I'm going to take a little bit of score tape and just put it on the top and bottom sides. Oops. Just like this. He's just going to burnish really good. Now that we have this, I'm going to take my glue, run it about 1/2 inch down the length of my chipboard along the short end, and then on the other side about 1/2 inch down, and then kind of just along the paper where I cut my corners. So it'll look like this. I'm going to take my burnishing tool here, and I'm just going to burnish this again, and this time I'm going to put my fingers just on the chipboard here, and then I'm going to take my bone folder with the curved side, burnish the top on the chipboard, and then burnish the corners here, making sure that I'm burnishing along the edge of the chipboard. So then it'll look like this. Then I'm going to take my scissors and I'm going to make an angle cut right from the corner of my chipboard outward. And I'm going to flip this around so that I can get a better cut here on my other side, and I'm going to do the same thing. So then it'll look like this. And that just gives you a little more coverage of your chipboard with your spine pieces. So I'm just going to do the same thing on the other side, putting glue on the edge of my chipboard here, and then along the cardstock, and then I'm just going to burnish this really good, stick it down the chipboard, and then with my bone folder I'm going to burnish everything, making sure I have a good stick. And sometimes it doesn't want to stick, but if you go over it a couple times it will. I'm just going to now cut at an angle on both sides, just like that. I'm going to now flip back to the front and just quickly burnish, making sure the top and bottom are really good and burnished. And then I'm going to take my score tape here and I'm going to go about 1/8 to 1/4 inch away from the chipboard edge and put a little bit of score tape here, and then a little bit on the other side of the flap. I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. And then your front will look like this. So now I'm going to finish wrapping my pieces, and then I will be back and we'll put our cover together. So all our pieces are wrapped and we're ready to make the album. Now with your 3-inch square, you're just going to set that off to the side right now. That's the closure part. I'm going to get my scoreboard out and put it on the side like this, so that's easier for me to put my album together. And right now you're just going to need one of your 3 1/8 and one of your 2 inches. So what you're going to do, and if you have a scoreboard, this is going to be much easier to do. You're going to take your backing off your score tape and then put glue on the score tape and in the middle of the 2 pieces of score tape. You don't want any glue close to your chipboard. Then make sure that your 3 1/8 is spread up against the bottom corner. You're going to lift the side of your spine up, butt it right up against your front piece, and then just gently stick it down like that. And then sometimes it will lift up, it shouldn't matter too much. You want to bend this, you want to bend your spine back so you can look at the edges. And then you want to make sure that the edges of your spine chipboard and your front chipboard are lined up. And when you're happy how they're looking, I'm going to open it back up and stick it down really good. And then when I get to this part, I like to take a marking tool when I get to this part, I like to take a marking tool, like a pen or pencil or something, and then right where I line these two pieces up, that's my bottom. So I'm going to go up here, and I'm just going to write top, so that I know that this edge will be my top. And I'm going to continue making sure that this is my top and this is my bottom. Now I'm going to take my 6 1/4 inch piece, put it up against the bottom, and then take the other side of my spine here, and I'm going to remove the backing of my score tape, add glue on my score tape and in between my score tapes. I don't want any close to my chipboard. And then making sure that the top is at the top, I'm going to lay this back down in my scoreboard, pushing this against the side and the bottom of my scoreboard, and I'm going to take my 6 1/4 inch piece, push it against my spine, and then carefully push the tab down, and then again I'm going to check. It looks pretty good, so I'm just going to burnish this to make sure that it sticks. Oops. And now I'm going to flip this around so that I have the other side. Now I'm going to take my second spine piece, and I'm just going to do the same thing I did previously. This time though, I don't have my 3 1/8 inch piece to help me butt it up against the bottom corner, so I'm just going to press down on both pieces and then push them against each other, and then carefully stick it down to get my bottoms even. And then grab my last piece here, peel off my backing, add some glue, and stick it on. Oops. Now, since I'm using score tape, I can peel this up and then align it to where I want. Oh, score tape and glue. The glue helps make sure that the score tape doesn't stick. until you're good and ready. Then when you burnish, the score tape will stick, letting the glue set, and then you have a really good stick because you have both the score tape and the glue. So now your cover is made, and I'm going to grab my mat again, and we're going to work on our 3-inch piece. So for this, I'm going to use 4 magnets here, or 4 pairs, I should say. If I can get them separated. And I'm going to start by putting these, my first 4, on the back of my 3-inch piece. And I'm going to use a little bit of score tape to stick them down. But you want to be careful to make sure that when you're using the score tape, you're not putting it right up against the edge, because you do want to cover this with paper. And if you're going to be following me with the decorating in the last video, we're going to be using the brown ice paper to cover the back. So I got that stuck down, and then I'm actually going to use my scoreboard for this part, and I'm going to line my cover up in the center, and then I'm going to put a couple pieces of score tape on 2 of the magnets, sticky side up, and put their partners on top so that the magnets stick to the score tape. Like this. So I'm going to line this back up, and then I'm going to take my little chipboard piece, and half of 3 is 1 1/2. So I'm going to line this up in the center both ways. And when I'm happy with where it is, I'm just going to try to stick my magnets down. And it might be a little hard to do. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. If it doesn't work, you can always put a little bit of glue on your magnet and then line up everything again, and then you can just stick your magnet down, and then the glue will leave an impression, so then you'll know where exactly to line your magnet up. And then you should be centered. So I'm going to figure out where my top is on my cover. And I'm going to take my marking tool again. On the back of my closure, I'm going to put top, just so you know where my top is with this. So I'm going to flip this around, and I'm going to do the same thing. But this time I think I'm going to put a little bit of glue on. just to help. I remember which way I'm doing this. There we go. So then I'm just going to line this up with my mat. Line my chipboard up. On my cover, stick it down, and then this time I didn't need the glue, but it's a good backup. So there you go. When you put this on, well, I'm gonna have to fix it, but it will line up. So here is the cover. I had to kind of hold this together like this and then put the magnets on here. It is a little uneven, but you won't notice it once it gets decorated. Whichever way you find easiest to put this on your album will work. As long as the closure or the flaps, the front flaps are even like this, and when you put your closure on top, they stay even. That's all that really matters. So next week we will be working on adding a pocket to the back and making the base pages. And then after that, if you are getting all the decorations and papers that I'm adding, all the ephemera and stuff that I'm adding to mine, that I put in the description of the walkthrough, then the week after we make the pages, I will go through and show you how to decorate it all to make it look really nice. So I'll see you next week and show you how to make the pages. Bye.